you? Before I get back into regular news style videos, I thought it would be fun to talk about or revisit my walkaway story because it was 4 years ago today, or not today, about 4 years ago today, that I officially left the Democratic Party. And I left sort of silently before I was outspoken about my beliefs. And I wrote a piece 4 years ago and released it anonymously. I had a friend that had a conservative platform and read this sort of letter or piece, I don't even know what you call it, but I wrote that as I was walking away from the Democratic Party, and I thought it would be really fun to read that and talk about where I was then, where I am now, where I think we are, and where I think we're going as far as politically and socially. And a lot of people have asked too, well, do you still feel the same way that now that Trump didn't win? Well, first of all, I learned a lot about the Constitution the past few weeks, and there's still litigation. It's still not completely over, so we'll know, I guess, in January. But even if it is a Biden presidency, I'm still really proud that I left. I feel amazing and great being a free thinker. I really do think that the Democratic Party has turned into this sort of, it's like a slavery of the mind. And once you leave, once you peek behind the curtain, once you kind of see that a lot of these journalists and celebrities that are telling us what to say and how to think, they're not very smart. And you don't have to listen to them, and you don't have to think, oh, because I'm this color, I'm an oppressor, or because I'm this color, or because I'm this gender, I'm just a victim all the time. That is such a terrible way to think. But before I go any further, I'm gonna read you the story. I'm gonna read you my piece, and this is all from me. And this was where my head was at about 4 years ago. And keep in mind, this is before I was outspoken. And this was a product of being around, just to explain to you where my head was at the time, this was a product of being here in the middle of Hollywood, being surrounded by people all the time who just talk and talk and talk and talk, and just being frustrated at the fact that I just had to smile and nod and keep my head down because I am just not that kind of person. So here it is. It's entitled Thoughts on Liberal Hollywood from a Conservative Actress, and this was right when I left the Democratic Party, or right around that time, 4 years ago. This is crazy. I read it a little bit before. I'm reading it to you now. A lot is the same, but a lot is different too. It says, "Hi, my name is Anonymous. I wish I could tell you my actual name, and trust me, no one relishes in taking credit for their own work more than me. But what I love even more than that is my budding career. I'm an actress. I live in Hollywood. I am a conservative. Entertainment and comedy have always been loves of mine. Some people think those things are flighty and not important work, but for me, growing up, when I would see a great performance, it showed me that anything is possible, and it taught me to have a sense of humor about life. Lucille Ball taught me to laugh at myself, to worry less. Seeing a lot of pain and struggle in my early years, this was important to me. For the first time in my life, right now, for simply speaking my unpopular opinions, I could potentially damage my career because, as you know, politics have seeped into everything. I used to think that having an unpopular opinion was brave and bold and meant that you think for yourself. I was always told to question and not be afraid to speak up, to not just assume what you were being told is true or right, but to seek information for yourself and form your own opinions. One of the greatest things about our country is the freedom to have those opinions and to be able to express them. Well, I am a young American female, and I cannot speak my mind in public without being shamed. Even though my opinions are about facts, numbers, solutions, helping and unifying people, all good things, right? If I say them in public because they lean conservative, because I don't hate the president, because I didn't vote the way they did, I could be labeled a bigot. I said because I didn't vote the way they did, but I mean as moving forward, because I, like I told you, was on the Hillary train. Just need to say that. But you get the point I was making. I could be labeled a bigot. People would look at me like I'm a leper. At one point, when I was outspoken, I was told I had white entitlement simply because I didn't agree with certain things that actually had nothing to do with race. I even had real evidence to prove my point, but that doesn't seem to matter anymore. All of a sudden, opinions that the majority doesn't agree with are becoming hate speech. Fun political debates have turned personal, even violent in many cases, and people like me are scared to speak up. Do I have privilege because I'm white? I don't know. I don't know how to measure that, and I can't speak for anyone else. I do know that being white didn't give me a present dad growing up. It didn't help my mom when she was working 7 days a week to raise my sister and I on her own. It also didn't help her to not lose everything that she did eventually build in 2008. So in 2008, my parents lost their home. They were briefly homeless, their jobs, everything. It was really bad. The house got foreclosed on. It didn't help my atrocious driving record. It didn't help me to not get arrested twice when I was younger and stupid. You're learning things about me. My mom called me a police magnet at one point. It didn't help me to not be choked, punched, spit on, hit in the head over a boombox while working to help at-risk children in this country become better people. Being white didn't bring back any of my family members who tragically passed away unexpectedly. I have been asked before, don't you watch the news? Yes, I do watch the news, actually. I just don't agree with you. And I'm not going to badmouth the president or anyone for that matter. But I have to play dumb so I'm not looked at like a villain or, God forbid, a white supreme sandwich. My early adult years were spent working in human services. I worked with kids in psychiatric hospitals, foster homes, and crisis centers. I have put my safety on the line and have been physically beat up protecting kids from all backgrounds. That was one of the hardest and most special times in my life, and I think about those kids all the time. In my life, I have given so much of myself for this country, and I do have a few scars to prove it. Yeah, I do. Some of my political beliefs even come from this time in my life. I was in the trenches and saw firsthand what actually helped people and what didn't. My beliefs are because I love people, not the other way around. Personally, I don't love when entertainers talk about politics on a platform. I'll leave that for the political commentators. But lately, I haven't been able to step out of my house without someone wanting to engage in a conversation about our current political climate. And when I say conversation, let's talk about how much we hate Trump and everything he stands for. How about this? Why don't you go and volunteer at a nonprofit since you love people and the world so much? There are a lot of kids out there that could use mentors, but I have to keep my head down and try to change the subject. I don't always have time to be condemned. Listen, I'm a really tough person, I'm healthy, and I have family. Therefore, I am abundant. Don't feel sorry for me ever. But this is a serious problem, not for me, but for our country, and there are a lot of people that feel the way I do. Some people have different views and might not agree with you or me, and that's totally cool. We live in America. We can do that here. We can debate. We can even listen to each other and share those ideas and maybe learn a thing or two. That is how changes and progress are made. I learned the most when I have shut my big mouth and listened to those with opposing opinions, even if it was uncomfortable. I have a lot of respect for many people that I have looked up to I have lost a lot of respect for many people that I look up to in the entertainment industry and even political leaders. I've seen so many people stoop to the very level they claim to oppose publicly, over and over again. I have been to marches that are supposed to be for unity and peace and have heard chants like "Dumb Trump" and "F Trump." People riot against hate speech with actual violence. Political leaders and celebrities are now promoting actual violence. I have seen people make mistakes and use this political climate to further endorse, whether consciously or not, this new thing of victimhood and blaming others for their situation. Leadership is not about claiming victimhood. It is about empowering people and inspiring them to be better and promoting personal responsibility. I am not excusing anything that was said by a man that is offensive, but if you are claiming to take the moral high ground, then let's take that road and encourage positive change. We have all seen what is happening on some of our college campuses. Freedom of speech now has an addendum. Did you know that? You can say what you want unless it opposes the majority's opinion, and if it does oppose, you are shut down and even worse, threatened. I am a kind and polite person. I help others, and I take full responsibility for my actions, especially when I make mistakes. I make sure every day that I give more than I take, and I have worked my tail off to get where I am without asking anyone for anything. I have had more challenges than a lot of people I know, and I am still the happiest person I know because I know that happiness is a choice. I don't waste time thinking about what is working against me. I make things work for me. No older white male or anyone will ever stand in my way because I say they won't. These are the very qualities that the far left seems to be losing every day, yet they continue to get louder and more aggressive and continue to try and shut people down. I know one thing for sure about the universe. It mimics what you put out. You don't get to say you want peace while promoting hate, even if you feel justified. Are there bigots in this world? Racist, white supreme sandwiches, misogynist? Yes, absolutely. And it's a terrible and disgusting thing and deserves to be called out. But the fact that we are throwing these damning and loaded terms around to silence ideas different from our own without actual evidence is harming this country and further separating us and teaching our younger generation to not be free thinkers and to not take personal responsibility. Whatever happened to assume it makes an ass out of you and me? We need ideas that are provocative and different than our own, and we need to feel uncomfortable sometimes. That makes you a well rounded human, and again, that is how progress is made. That is how the terrible ideas go to the bottom and the good ideas rise to the top. So I wrote this 4 years ago, and this is when I was just discovering all of this, when it was starting to become very real to me. Where I've changed is obviously now I'm a lot more outspoken, so I actually feel a lot freer since then. You can sort of hear the frustration and my tone here from just everywhere I went. I just had to go like this. When Donald Trump first ran, that's all anyone was talking about. Everywhere you went, everything became political. And I'll say this, and I know I do commentary on political things, and I'll talk about news stories, and this is more of a right-leaning commentary type channel, but I think politics actually are silly, and they shouldn't be things that we get in arguments about. That's one of the reasons why I speak about it. It's so silly to get into a heated, personal, feelings charged argument about politics. So when you have politicians, when you have people above you getting at your emotions and getting at your feelings, that's a problem. That means they actually don't have a good argument. They're getting at your emotions and feelings because they know that that clouds your judgment and you're not paying attention to other things. And they know that that is what can divide people. So where I feel the exact same, actually, a lot about this. My ideas on privilege have changed a bit. I think there are all kinds of different types of privilege, and I think there can be an argument made for white privilege in other circumstances, but there's also different kinds of privilege. Let's go back to, I'll use myself as an example. When I was a little girl, I lived in a small apartment with my mom and my sister. My mom worked 7 days a week. I had best friends that were Colombian, Indian, black, white, Jewish. I had all kinds of friends, and the one thing that was different between me and all my friends, the biggest difference that I noticed was the fact that a lot of them had a mom and a dad, and someone was home when they came home from school. Someone was there to make sure they did their homework. Someone was there to cook them dinner and things like that. I didn't have those. So I could imagine, growing up as that little girl and already feeling different and kind of less than everyone else around me because of the situation I had growing up and just because of the friends that I had, from already feeling that way to then being told, oh, well, you also need to feel guilty for, you're also an oppressor. So I think about that little girl, and I think about how sad that would be, even more sad and even more damaging to grow up with that messaging being pushed down my throat, or the opposite, being told that you are a victim because of your gender or your race. I can imagine how damaging that would be to grow up with that, because like I said, the thoughts that you hold on to create the world around you. We are all born with inherent privileges and inherent disadvantage, and how do you say, in this situation, this privilege trumps this privilege, so you should feel guilty, and in that situation, your privilege trumps this privilege? It's just a conversation that could go on and on and on and on. That's why I just think it's really important to, especially when we're teaching our kids, to focus more on just being a good person and having good character and giving back and being kind, and try to open your ears to people and listen instead of talking so much. One of my favorite pieces of advice when I was working for Human Services, we had a few people that wanted to work with the elderly, and we were having a discussion in class once, and the discussion was, how do you talk to an elderly person who is looking at you saying, you don't understand how it feels, you're not my age, you don't know what it's like to be this age, how can you understand, you're sitting there young, you don't know what I'm going through. And instead of focusing what is different, we kind of take it away and focus on what is the same. Okay, you're right. You are absolutely right. I do not know what it's understand. I do not know what it's like to be your age. I've never been that age. I have no idea, but I do know what it's like to feel lonely, or I do know what it's like to feel scared, or I do know what it's like to feel discarded or to be heartbroken. And you can focus on those, and those are the things that bring us together. I absolutely do not regret leaving the Democratic Party. And look, I'm more than anything, I am on the side of truth. So if that ever shifts back, I could shift back. I can change my mind. I changed it in 2016. It just seemed that truth and logic and common sense and my own personal values seem to be on their side of the Republicans right now. And once you kind of look behind the curtain, there is no going back. So even if we go into a Biden presidency, I am so proud that I walked away, and I'm even more proud that I'm outspoken. Could that ruin potential opportunities that I might get because of the things that I audition for or that I read for? Very, very much so. That is a huge possibility, and I understand that. But I also understand that I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror. I have to do what I feel is right. You know, I have a voice just like you have a voice, and if you see something, say something, and you shouldn't be afraid to speak out, and you shouldn't have to keep your head down and smile and nod just to get along. I can hold my head high. I can look in the mirror. I love being a free thinker, and that's just how I am. And I've always been one, when everyone's going this way, you go that way. The future is not with everyone else that's doing the same thing over here. The future is with the people that are going this way. And I've always wanted to be this type of person, not that type of person. With that being said, where do I think the future is going, or how do I personally feel about the future as far as culturally, politically, entertainment wise? I know a lot of things seem very bleak right now. It does. It feels like Republicans have lost the culture war. It seems like everything is just, the odds are just stacked up. And where it felt like we were making a lot of headway and a lot of people were opening up their eyes to things, I think what happened with the election kind of was a bit of a punch in the gut for a lot of Republicans and sort of made us feel pretty hopeless. But I will say, I think when the biggest change is happening, it does look the darkest. And I know that it does. A lot looks really dark right now. We actually, what was my last video? We were talking about Gascon getting into office, our new DA that's basically just decriminalizing everything. Well, the beauty that came out of that is there's a Facebook group now that is recalling him, and people are waking up. A lot of people that even voted for him were like, wow, I feel duped. I didn't know that it was going to be this progressive, and they're starting to see what's happening. They're starting to realize, okay, all this money was popped in or was pumped into the campaign. All I saw were ads for him. I feel duped, and people are having these conversations that otherwise would not have had these conversations. And people are starting to realize, oh, the only one that's covering this is Tucker Carlson, or oh, he used race as a reason to push these progressive policies. But the irony is, if you go on the Facebook page, if you look at the people that are complaining about this, it's mostly people from minority communities, and these are the peoples whose family members are victims, and these criminals, these violent criminals who perpetrated on their family members, are being let back out into the streets. So this is hurting the very community that it was supposed to be helping, and people that otherwise would have been a little bit ignorant to this about a year ago and would have been all for policy like this are now starting to realize. And sometimes it takes going off the deep end a little bit for people to wake up and start realizing. So yes, I do have hope, and I know it seems dark, and I also have a lot of hope for entertainment. There's a lot of great comedians that are coming up that are not PC, and they have excellent content. I've seen it here locally. I see it online. For myself, I'll never stop acting or performing, and if no one will hire me, well, guess what? I've hired myself before. I got myself into SAG, so I'll just do the same thing again. And at this time right now, we need creators more than ever. We need innovators, people that are gonna go and do their own thing and create their own art. That's what we need. And look, 4 years ago, you would not have seen a Trump sign anywhere in California, and they are all over California. Anytime I drove anywhere, traveled anywhere, whether south or north, Trump signs everywhere. We had the huge rallies in Beverly Hills. you would not have seen that 4 years ago. So that in and of itself gives me hope. And I don't know about you, but just connecting with you guys has been such a really fun and positive experience. And I hope you feel the same. And while some friends have gone bye-bye, better ones have emerged from the top. And I feel like that's what happens sometimes. I don't know if you know this either, but way back in the day, and hopefully this gives you a little bit of comfort, but way back in the day, JP Morgan and Rockefeller actually bought McKinley, the president. They did not like the person who was running against them. They were worried about their monopolies being destroyed. So they bought McKinley as a president, and they controlled the media at that time. And at that time, it was so easy to control the media because there were it was so limited, their media. So you could control the narrative a lot easier. The beauty of what's happening right now. So being a regular citizen, you were less likely to be able to recognize what was going on and call it out. But now when our media is being biased or when we don't trust them, we have the ability to call it out now. We have alternative news sources. So I know it seems like everything's really bad now and people are getting censored and the media is biased, but this is something that is not super new, but now we have the ability to call it out. And now artists like myself have the artist, ew. Now idiots like myself have the ability, if I want to act, I can make my own content. I can put out my own art. I can produce my own shows. And that's the beauty of it. And I think that's where we're going to see sort of like a revolution in comedy and a new era of entertainment, because people are tired of this and they're tired of Hollywood and they're going to start doing their own thing. And I think that's what they should do. I have heard a lot of people say that this is hi kitty, that this is a spiritual battle between good and evil, and I do believe that to a certain extent, very much so. I believe that, and how you stamp out evil is to shine light on it. And I know that things seem to not be looking up in certain areas, and I know you turn on the news every day and see bad stories or angering stories, but I'm also seeing a lot of people have conversations that were not having conversations a few years ago, and a lot of light is being shed on what's happening. And that might be why we think it's so bad, is because now it's coming to the surface and we're seeing it and it's saying hello and we're saying, I don't like you. Great. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. How are you feeling? Where are you at right now? And have a really good day. Okay, bye.